I never thought my mother's wedding anniversary dinner would be the night I finally stopped begging to belong in my own family, but that's exactly what happened. One moment, I was sliding my chair toward the table, trying to ignore the way everyone's laughter felt just a little too forced, and the next, my stepfather's fingers were digging into my arm, yanking the chair away so hard my hip slammed into the edge of the table. Glasses rattled, cutlery clinked, and my cheeks burned as he turned to me with that flat, bored expression he'd perfected over the years and said, "That place is for my family, Zara. You can sit over there." He jerked his chin toward a lonely chair pushed against the wall near the balcony door, half in the shadows, away from the warm chandelier light, away from the center of everything. For a second, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. My mother's smile froze on her face, and my younger half-sister Layla started adjusting her napkin like the tablecloth had suddenly become the most fascinating thing in the world. I straightened slowly, the pain in my side pulsing in time with my heartbeat, and something inside me went very, very still. I wish I could say that night was some shocking, out-of-character explosion, that Imran had always been kind, that everyone gasped because they couldn't believe he would treat me that way. But that would be a lie. Families like ours don't collapse in a single evening. They erode over years. One small dismissal, one sarcastic comment, one joke at your expense at a time, until one day there's nothing left to hide the rot underneath. My mother, Saba, married Imran when I was 14, calling him her second chance, her miracle after years of struggling alone. For her, maybe he was a fresh start, at least on the surface. For me, he was the beginning of learning how to edit myself out of every moment that mattered. He never shouted where the neighbors could hear, never raised a hand high enough to leave obvious bruises. He didn't need to. His weapons were cooler than that. A rolled eye when I spoke, a "Zara, don't be dramatic" when I tried to explain how something made me feel, a pointed "we're talking about family matters" whenever I walked into a room at the wrong time. "You're so sensitive," my mother would murmur, patting my arm without really touching me. "He's trying. You're not a child anymore. Stop imagining things." After a while, her phrases became like the background hum of an old refrigerator. Always there, easy to ignore, until you tried to sleep. By the time I was in my 20s, I had perfected the art of becoming convenient, showing up when invited, leaving before I took up too much space, smiling on cue for photos that made us look like a happy, blended family to anyone scrolling past on social media. The truth is, celebrations were always the hardest. The house would be transformed, fairy lights threaded along railings, the dining table set like something out of a magazine, plates perfectly aligned, candles flickering in glass holders, and still, the air always felt a degree colder around my chair. Layla was the star, and none of that was really her fault. She didn't ask to be put on a pedestal. Imran built it for her. He made sure everyone knew her latest achievements, her smallest victories, while my milestones were quietly folded and stacked away like old newspapers. Yet, I kept showing up. Not for him, and not even for Layla. For my mother. Some part of me believed that if I stayed long enough, swallowed enough small humiliations, she might finally look up and actually see me. Not the flawed sketch of me that Imran waved in front of her whenever it suited him. That night, I had rehearsed answers in the car on the way over, practicing neutral responses to predictable questions. "Work is fine. Yes, I'm eating well. No, I'm not dating anyone serious." I knew Imran liked to twist any extra detail into an accusation of ingratitude later. I thought if I kept things light, there'd be less for him to use against me. But the tension met me at the door before I'd even taken off my shoes. Imran barely glanced up from his drink, his arm draped over the back of his chair like he owned not just the seat, but the air we were breathing. My mother fussed over the flower arrangements instead of looking me in the eye. Layla was in a new dress I'd never seen before, was settled in the chair at Imran's right hand, the spot that used to be mine at events like this when I was younger, before it slowly migrated away from the center of the table and closer to the edge of the room. I should have noticed the pattern by then. the way my place kept drifting toward the margins. When he yanked my chair and claimed it for his family, it wasn't just my body knocked off balance, it was every compromise I'd ever made crashing down at once. The scrape of the chair legs against the floor seemed to slice through the murmurs in the room. A couple of relatives glanced up and quickly looked away. My mother reached for the serving spoon like she could stir away the crack that had just opened. "Zara, just sit anywhere," she said with a tight little laugh that sounded like a cough. "Don't make it a big issue, please. Imran had a long day." Had a long day, as if being tired explained turning someone into furniture that could be dragged wherever he pleased. Layla kept her gaze fixed on the salad bowl, twisting her bracelet around her wrist until the metal bit into her skin. Imran settled himself in the seat he'd just taken from me, stretching, smugness leaking from every casual movement. He said, "You know the rules. Closer seats are for people who are actually part of this home." The words landed heavier than the near fall had. I stood there, my hand still clamped around the back of the displaced chair, pulse hammering, and forced myself to speak through the dryness in my throat. "You could have just asked me to move," I said, my voice low but steady. He tilted his head, almost amused. He replied, "You never listen unless someone spells it out." The message was clear. This wasn't about space at a table. It was about putting me back in the invisible box he'd drawn around me years ago. My mother's eyes darted between us, panic flickering across her face. She whispered, "Please not tonight. People are watching. There's a chair near the balcony. Just sit there, honey. Don't start." Near the balcony. Away from the laughter, away from the toasts, away from any chance of being included. For a brief second, I considered doing what I'd always done. Dropping my gaze, shrinking my outline to fit whatever shape made everyone else comfortable. But something quiet and solid rose up inside me instead, heavier than anger, clearer than pain. I let go of the chair. Instead of walking toward the balcony, I walked toward the hallway that led to the front door. "Zara, where are you going?" my mother hissed, following me, her voice a frantic whisper. "Don't walk out! You'll embarrass us!" I turned, my hand already on my bag. I could hear clinking glasses and Imran's low clutter behind her as if nothing had happened. He dragged my chair away like I'm some stranger who wandered into his party, and your first thought is about embarrassment? She flinched, her mouth opening and closing without sound. This wasn't the first time he'd undermined me in front of others. It was just the first time I refused to pretend nothing had happened. "Please," she pleaded, "you know how he gets. If you react, it only makes it worse." There it was, the excuse that had built our entire family silence, the idea that keeping things calm for him was more important than anyone else's dignity. I felt something inside me click into place, a gear finally aligning after years of grinding. I said, "I'm done making it easy for him to hurt me and then blame my reaction. One day, you'll see what you've been protecting." Her eyes welled, but I didn't stay to watch the tears fall. I slipped on my shoes, stepped out into the cool night air, and walked away from the glow of the decorated house without looking back. On the drive home, streetlights smeared into pale lines on the windshield, but my thoughts were sharper than they'd been in years. I expected to sob the whole way, to shake with the weight of finally defying him. Instead, there was a dense, focused calm in my chest, like a storm had passed and left behind clean, cold air. My phone buzzed against the passenger seat again and again, unknown numbers, my mother's name, Layla's face flashing on the screen, but I let each call fade into silence. I had spent years answering every summons, soothing every flare of his temper by minimizing my own hurt. That night, I let the phone ring out. When I walked into my small apartment, the quiet felt different, less like loneliness and more like safety. I tossed my keys on the counter, filled a glass of water, and leaned against the sink. The scene replayed in my mind. The shove of wood against my hip, his dismissive tone, my mother's frantic insistence that I not make a fuss. Beneath all of that, another memory surfaced. Countless evenings spent at their dining table, sorting through bills and bank statements because numbers confused my mother, while Imran watched TV and occasionally strolled in to sign something without really looking. I'd been their unofficial bookkeeper for years. The one who labeled folders, set reminders for due dates, explained interest rates in simple terms. Imran liked to call himself the head of the house, but I knew who actually kept the roof from crumbling, even if no one gave me credit for it. That night, instead of crying into my pillow, I pulled my laptop from my bag and set it on the table. I opened the folder where I'd scanned and saved copies of documents, just in case, because my mother always lost paper originals, loan forms, credit card statements, receipts for home repairs, emails from banks. I hadn't looked at them as a whole before. I'd only ever dealt with each crisis in isolation. This late fee here, that interest hike there, patching holes while Imran strutted around bragging about how hard he worked for his family. But when you line them up side by side,